There it is, the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra. And in this video today, you're gonna get my full rundown review after using this watch for a couple of weeks now. Not a huge duration of time, but enough time to go for a bunch of different runs with this watch, use it in my everyday life, and sort of get a feel for what it's all about. And just as a reminder, if you're new to my channel, I typically review these things from the perspective of a fitness watch, something you're gonna use as a tool for your runs and your bike rides. So I will be covering all the smartwatch features, but those things are not like the most important thing to me in my personal use case, so do with that what you will. And before we move on, I also want to mention that this video is not sponsored or anything like that. In fact, I'm probably one of the few people on YouTube that actually went out and bought this thing with my own hard-earned money. I also bought the Samsung Galaxy Ring, which is not here yet. It's still in the mail, so stay tuned for a review on that in the very near future as well. Moving right along to the next topic, that's going to be pricing and options. The Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra comes in at $649 here in the USA, and it is available in 3 different color options for the watch case itself. That's going to be gray, silver, and white titanium, and all of them look pretty similar. It's just sort of different shades of gray, while this darker gray version I have here is more of a black color and also has these orange accents around the perimeter. You also have a lot of option when it comes to the bands of these watches. There's the marine band, which is the one I have here, which comes in a few different colors. There's the trail band, which I actually have on order and I'm waiting for it to come in the mail. I'm really excited about that one. And then there's the peak form band, and they're all different colors and materials and made for different use cases. That's really going to boil down to what you need and what activities you're recording and which one you want to get. Now, as mentioned before, this is the marine band. This is the orange marine band. It is pretty cool, and it does match the colors and the accents of the watch in this gray model pretty much exactly. We also have to talk about compatibility. Now, I have a Samsung Galaxy phone, which is sort of the best case scenario when you're using this particular watch. This watch is compatible with other Android phones. However, you won't get all of the features. If you're using like a Motorola phone, you're gonna be missing some features, including the onboard ECG function and some other stuff under the hood. I'd say if you want the best experience with this watch, you should be using a Galaxy phone as well. With all of that out of the way, let's dive a little bit deeper and talk about the hardware itself. As you can see here, we're dealing with a pretty chunky watch. This is a 47mm squarish form factor, and it is pretty big on my 165mm circumference wrist. However, it's not totally uncomfortable or unusable, and I've been wearing it to bed without a problem. So it's really gonna boil down to your personal preference and how big of a watch you can wear. For me, this is right on the edge of what I find comfortable. When it comes to the weight of this watch, it comes in at 61 grams without the attached band. However, if you do attach the band, in my case, the marine band here, which is probably one of the heavier ones, it does come in at 93 grams, which does put it on the higher end of the spectrum when it comes to weight compared to other sport watches out there, like a high-end Garmin watch or something like that. Let's talk about the build quality on the Galaxy Watch Ultra. This thing is built like an absolute tank, and just feeling it in your hand, it inspires confidence. I really don't think you're gonna have any trouble with this watch in terms of scratches or dings or dents. I really like the fact that there's a sapphire display, so it's going to be really scratch resistant. The body itself does feel like it's made out of some sort of DLC coated titanium. The top and bottom pieces here are made out of titanium, and then the sort of Oreo stuffing between them is plastic, but even that plastic does feel really high quality. It's got a matte finish to it, and it's even, I can't scratch it. Like, I can scratch it with my fingernail, but it doesn't leave a mark. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with the build quality, and I do feel like this is gonna last a really long time and take a beating. Now, flipping the watch to the right here, you do have 3 buttons on board. You've got a top button here with an orange accent, a lower button with a white accent, and then you've got this middle button here, which Samsung calls their quick button. This middle button here can be mapped to various different actions. For me, I've mapped it to the exercise app, so if I want to go for a run, all I've got to do is tap that button one time. It brings up the exercise menu, and I can drop into a run very quickly, just like that. And again, in terms of build quality with these buttons, they feel really solid. Like they've got a nice haptic click to them. And what I like about that quick button is it's actually got some protection around it, some like a shroud that protects it from accidental bumps. I do have one wish list item with that quick button. When I first saw this watch, I thought this was going to be a digital crown that you could roll with your fingers so you could scroll through menus and stuff. But that's simply not the case. It's just a button, it's not a wheel. And you can scroll through menus quickly by simply dragging your finger around the perimeter of the display, just like a lot of Samsung watches, but it's not quite the same same as using a wheel because your finger's kind of in the way as you scroll. Flipping the Galaxy Watch Ultra over, we've got a new and improved optical heart rate sensor on the back here that aims to give you better accuracy compared to older Samsung devices. In my history with Samsung devices, I did not get good accuracy, so stay tuned for the accuracy segment in this video because I'll spoil it now, things are looking much better with this version. On top of being an optical heart rate sensor, there's also a blood oxygen saturation sensor on board in here and a wrist temperature sensor as well. So you've got a lot of sensing happening on the back of the watch, and that rolls into all the advanced wellness metrics that we'll talk about in a minute. Jumping back to the included marine band that I got with my particular watch, I do actually like this band quite a bit. It is very comfortable. The one thing I don't like about it is that it's a bit long for my wrist. So like I said, I do have 165mm circumference wrists, and as you can see, the watch doesn't look too crazy on my wrist. I can pull it off just fine. However, the one thing you'll notice is that the watch band is almost overlapping itself because of how long it is, and this is a one-size-fits-all kind of band. I do wish this edge of the band was sort of more in the back and not in my view when I was looking at the watch, but it's a minor complaint, and I do have hopes that the other bands, I've already ordered the trail band, will have a better fit. Couple other specs of note, this watch is water resistant down to 10 atmospheres or 100 meters. However, it's not rated for diving, so if you are a scuba diver or something like that, you'll probably want to look for a different device. On top of that, under the hood in the Galaxy Watch Ultra, you do get a super fast processor. The CPU in here is very fast. The GPU and rendering different text and animations and everything, there's really no lag at all. It's just a super fluid, super fast experience, and that's to be expected with a watch like this. And of course, being a very smart smartwatch, there's also a ton of internal storage. There's 32 gigabytes inside this watch, but there's only about 21 gigabytes available with all the system software and stuff on top of that for installing apps and music and all the other things you might do. Hey there, quick interruption. If you're finding this video fun or helpful or useful or anything, please consider going down and giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. Back to the video. With all of the specs and features of the hardware out of the way, I just want to give you my opinion on the design of this watch. I do like some things about this watch, like having all the buttons on one side, the build quality, the feel, the materials is all really nice. My only criticism of this watch is actually the look of it. I'm not a huge fan of it, and I know in other videos I get attacked for stating my opinion on how this watch looks, but I'm sorry, I just don't love that squircle design. I feel like it's a little bit of wasted real estate. For example, these little portions in the corner that are just flat pieces of metal could be a display, and you could get more screen real estate with a square display. Again, that is just my opinion, and I get that there's other watches out there like the Panerai or whatever brand that is, that those watches are like $20,000 and they look a lot like this. And on the bright side, if you do like this design, it is very unique. Like there's not really another smartwatch out there that looks like this, so if you're walking around, there'll be no doubt that people will be able to identify what kind of watch you're wearing. Focusing more on some of the important features here, we do have a really nice display on this watch. This is a 1.5-inch Super AMOLED display, and it does get up to 3000 nits of brightness, which is insanely bright and probably overkill for most situations. However, that 3000 nits is actually quite useful if you're in super bright, glaring direct sunlight, because the watch will boost up that brightness so you can see it very clearly even out in the middle of the day, which is quite nice. This display is also always on directly out of the box by default, so will never turn off as you've noticed in this video. It stays dimly illuminated even when you're not using it, so you can kind of look at it at a glance and see what's going on. And I will say one really impressive thing with the Galaxy Watch Ultra is the gesture raise to wake functionality is insanely fast. It's probably one of the best gesture raise to wakes on the market, and it's probably hard to demo in this video, but as soon as you raise your wrist, it really illuminates quickly and there's no hesitation. It never misses even while I'm running, which is a problem with other watches. This one's just one of the best on the market in terms of that gesture, and I really do like that. All right, let's go on a walkthrough of the user interface. This watch face in particular, I like quite a bit because it just got a ton of data on it. And again, you can customize all of the complications individually for what you want to see. So I've got like rain percentage on the left side. I've got my step count, the day of the week, the date, the time of day, and a whole bunch of other information available here. The cool thing about these watch faces is you can tap on any bit of data and dive directly into that app to see even more. So if I want to see the weather for the day, I just tap on the temperature here, and that brings me into the weather forecast. Dropping back into the app list here, we've also got the Google Play Store installed on this watch. So within here, you can download a whole bunch of different apps. There's like thousands to choose from out there, from Strava to Spotify to whatever else you want to do. You could probably find an app for it on this watch. But I'm not going to dive too deep on third-party apps because that's a whole can of worms that would make this video way too long. So that's the basic gist of the navigation of the Galaxy Watch Ultra. Now, let's swipe right through the user interface here. So as you can see here, you've got my summary of my activity for the day, which includes my active time, my calories burned, and my step count for the day, which is not very high. I gotta go for my run later today. One thing I've noticed with the Galaxy Watch Ultra is that the step count and calories burned on this watch do seem a bit generous. For example, most days, my Garmin and all of the other test devices I've been wearing report a lower step count and lower calories burned compared to the Galaxy Watch Ultra. This is not something that is super important, like accuracy of step count isn't the most important thing in the world. It's more important to have consistency so you can be able to tell when you have an active day and a sedentary day. And I think even with that generous step count, it still gets the job done. I just thought it was worth mentioning. Swiping over to the next dial, it drops us into the multi-sport widget. So this is a new feature for the Galaxy Watch Ultra that allows you to go on a multi-sport activity like swim, bike, run for triathlon purposes or an Ironman or something like that. And you can record it all in one activity. Swiping over one more time brings us to the new energy score widget. And this is one of the more interesting features on these new Galaxy watches. The energy score widget tries to give you a score based on a 0 to 100 scale on how much energy you have to tackle the day ahead. As you can see here, my energy score for today is 58, which is not great. And if I scroll down, you can see all of the factors that play a role in that score. My sleep from last night was actually good. But if I scroll down, you can see my activity from the previous day is a little bit high because I did go on my long run yesterday, which is playing a role in the energy score today. Scrolling down, you can see my sleeping heart rate was fair. And if I scroll down even further, my sleeping HRV was high. And if I scroll down even further than that, you get all of the raw data that plays a role in coming up with the score, from my average heart rate to my HRV, my skin temperature, and more. And of course, all of this data is also viewable within the Samsung Health app on your phone as well. When it comes to accuracy of the energy score on the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra, it's really hard to quantify how accurate this is. However, I can compare it to something like Garmin's body battery feature, which is pretty similar. And as you can see, my Garmin body battery this morning was 64, while my Samsung energy score was 58, which is actually pretty close. The real difference though between Garmin's body battery and Samsung's energy score is that the energy score doesn't depreciate over time. For example, I woke up with a 58 and it's still telling me 58, where Garmin's body battery will actually trend down throughout the day depending on your activity level. So the energy score on these Samsung devices is more of a snapshot of your day, which is similar to something like the Oura Ring, where Garmin's body battery is something that's always changing throughout the day. And scrolling over one more time, we get to the sleep time. So the sleep tile here will display all of your sleep metrics from the previous night. Here I've got my sleep score of 90, and it shows my total duration of sleep, along with a bunch of advanced metrics like my sleep stages on a graph here. You can also view your individual sleep stages like REM sleep, deep sleep, and light sleep. And there is one more consideration to talk about when it comes to wellness and activity tracking with the Galaxy Watch Ultra. And it's the fact that this is one of the rare options on the market right now that actually have an ecosystem for wellness because of the new Galaxy Smart Ring. For example, you accidentally leave your watch at home on the charger and you're still wearing your ring, you'll still collect all of that wellness data like your step count, your calories burned, your energy score. All of that will still be collected because you're wearing the ring. Or maybe you have a job where you're not allowed to wear a watch, but you can wear a ring. Again, you can fill the gaps in that way. And generally, I just really like the idea of having multiple devices syncing to the same place in Samsung Health. Oh yeah, and there's also one more interesting feature of the Galaxy Watch Ultra I want to mention in this video. It's the fact it does have a built-in emergency siren. So if you do find yourself out on a long hike or a trail run and you find yourself lost, or maybe you're injured or something like that, all you've got to do is hold down this middle button, the quick button on the right here, for extended duration of time. You can see there, it's counting down from 10, 9, it's getting louder. It's gonna be really annoying. 3, 2, 1, there it is. Yep, it's very loud. Wow. Not for everybody, not something you're gonna use every day, but something you might find handy in the right situation. Okay, let's get to the point of this video. Let's talk about activity tracking, when you're actually using your watch to go out on a run or a bike ride or something like that, and all of the features that it has under the hood. For me personally, I've basically only been using the built-in native exercise app, as you can see here, and that is accessed once again by simply pushing the quick button on the right here if you've got it mapped that way. This isn't the only app you can use to record activities. There's a whole bunch out there on the Google Play Store, but for me, just for the sake of this video and reviewing this device, I've been using the native Samsung app. The native Samsung workout app does have all of the basics covered. So you've got that multi-sport mode for triathlon or Ironman use. You've got walking, running, cycling, strength training, swimming. You've got hiking, badminton, circuit training. When you do dive into any particular workout, I'll choose running here. You'll be able to start a workout. Now there is a setting to enable the quick button to start workouts. By default, there'll be like a 3, 2, 1 countdown and then you'll go for your run. For me, I really like having a hardware button to push to start my run. So I'll go ahead and push the quick button now. That will start my workout. And as you can see, I'll get some data pages right off the bat. That will show my heart rate, my duration, my pace, my calories, my average speed, my cadence. And if I scroll down, I get even more information. All of these data pages are customizable within the Samsung Health app on your phone. You can change out what data you're viewing on any particular page. And it is kind of interesting that I'm showing a heart rate right now while this watch is sitting on the table. From within the native workout app, you can also set goals. So if you want to go out and you want to run a target pace or a target duration, calories burned, you can do an interval training session, or you can actually race yourself from a previous activity, which is kind of fun. Unfortunately, the only thing missing from the native workout app or exercise app on the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra is that it does not support any external sensors. So I've tried pairing an external heart rate sensor or a stride power meter or any of that stuff. It doesn't seem to be available in the native workout app. The interesting thing about the native workout app, in particular when going for a run, is that it does record a whole bunch of advanced running metrics, which I did not expect. So you'll see all of the basics like your distance, your heart rate, your calories burned, etc. But then there's a bunch of advanced metrics like estimated VO2 max. And oddly enough, the estimated VO2 max that the Galaxy Watch Ultra gave me after a couple of different runs was very similar to what my Garmin gave me and a couple of other test devices. On top of your estimated VO2 max, you also get things like your asymmetry, your ground contact time, your flight time, your regularity, vertical oscillation, and your stiffness, which are all very advanced metrics that I don't think most people know what to do with. However, Samsung does guide you a little bit here, and they do have a gauge on whether or not you're improving or not improving in all of those different metrics, so that is helpful in some way. Another interesting feature of the Galaxy Watch Ultra's native workout app is that it actually does have a form of mapping and navigation built right into it, which I was not expecting, and it does actually work pretty well. Within the native workout app, you can actually import a pre-made GPX file using the Samsung Health app on your phone from a variety of different sources. And if you don't know what a GPX file is, that's sort of the standard file format for transferring course data from places like Strava or AllTrails or even Garmin Connect, and now you can take that information and import it into your Samsung watch. And if you do accidentally go off course, the watch will actually notify you to turn around and get back on course, which can be really useful. On top of GPX file import, you can also do a track back during an activity. You can use the track back feature to guide your way along the path you just took to get out there to get back to the beginning of your activity. And the cool thing with all these navigation features is it seems you don't need to have your phone on you for this stuff to work. You do have to have your phone on you to import a GPX file or set it all up, but once you do that, you don't need to have it on you to actually execute the course or even follow it. It seems to cache those map tiles, and then you can just view it during your run, which is pretty cool. Now that we've talked about activity recording and tracking, let's talk about the big question mark here: GPS modes and accuracy on the new Galaxy Watch Ultra, because this new watch is multi-band enabled, which is sort of the gold standard right now when it comes to GPS accuracy. So the multi-band feature on the Galaxy Watch Ultra basically means it's using two frequencies to sort of triangulate your position to get a better GPS fix instead of using a single frequency. And by today's standards, a lot of watches are doing this. The Garmin on my wrist does this, the Apple Watch Ultra does this. There's a lot of them out there, but it's good to see Samsung get on the same page because it does tend to improve accuracy. Now, one weird thing about this is that there's no setting for this. So if you want to dial down your accuracy to preserve battery life, it doesn't seem to be available. You can't drop into the settings and choose GPS only or all systems or multiband. it's sort of just automatic and probably gives you the best opportunity for accuracy when you're out there. But how accurate is it? Because in the past, in Samsung devices with me personally, I never had great results. I'm happy to report here that this is a huge improvement in terms of GPS accuracy. On most of the runs I've recorded so far, the tracks are looking crisp and clean, and getting a location fix before actually starting my run is nearly instant. It basically picks it up right away as soon as you click that exercise app and click on run. It picks up your location and you're off and running. I've taken the Galaxy Watch Ultra on a handful of different runs while also wearing other test devices like the Apple Watch Ultra 2 and my Garmin Forerunner 965, which again are both multi-band enabled devices. And to get a real baseline of comparison on how these things compare, I did take these watches to a track that's a known distance. It's a 400-meter track, and I did a whole bunch of laps around the track while using these watches in their highest accuracy settings. Now keep in mind, I did not have the Garmin or the Apple Watch in track mode, which is kind of a cheat that would give them super good accuracy. I left them all in multi-band mode, so everything's fair. Now because I was on a track and I was in the same lane and I did a whole bunch of different laps, that would imply that the GPS results from that would all be stacked on top of each other, and the closer those lines are together would indicate better accuracy. And as you can see here, the Galaxy Watch Ultra did a pretty darn good job in this test at that particular track. However, I will say that the Garmin Forerunner 965 here in multi-band mode did have a slight edge in terms of accuracy. The track just looked a little bit cleaner and the tracks fell nearly right on top of each other. And I think it goes without saying that if you aren't comparing things side by side like I am, this is something you won't even notice and the tracks will look really good. Another quick observation is that at the end of most of my activities, the overall distance recorded from all of these different devices was pretty much spot on. With GPS accuracy out of the way, let's move on to the big one. This is heart rate sensor accuracy from the optical heart rate sensor on the back of the Galaxy Watch Ultra. Again, my history with Samsung devices has not been great, especially with the heart rate sensor. The last one I tested was just way off, and again, I'm happy to report huge improvements here when it comes to the optical heart rate sensor. Samsung claims they've improved the accuracy of the optical heart rate sensor by adding more LEDs and light receivers to the back here, along with some sort of AI-driven algorithm to eliminate erroneous data. And all that seems to be working because the heart rate data I'm getting from the Galaxy Watch Ultra is actually pretty good in my testing so far. Side by side with the Galaxy Watch Ultra and my ECG sensor, things look pretty similar. They're not exactly the same. There are some deviations here or there, but again, if you weren't comparing things side by side from the ECG sensor to the optical sensor, this is something you probably wouldn't notice, especially if you're just someone casually using the watch. And when it comes to the heart rate sensor accuracy, I'm particularly impressed with this watch because it is a larger, heavier watch, and typically those larger, heavier watches have a hard time with heart rate sensor accuracy because they tend to move around more on your wrist when you're running because they are bigger and heavier. And that improved heart rate sensor accuracy is important because, again, I couldn't find a way to pair an external sensor to this watch, so you can't really use an external chest strap or an armband or something like that unless you use a third-party app. Okay, with accuracy out of the way, let's talk about battery life. This is another big one because the big claim to the Galaxy Watch Ultra is improved battery life thanks to its bigger size and bigger battery capacity and all that fun stuff. So battery life is a huge can of worms because there are so many variables in these watches because they're so powerful with cellular antennas and Wi-Fi and bright displays that all of that plays a role in how much battery you'll get out of your watch. And even in Samsung's own documentation, they're not very clear on the battery life in typical use with this watch. Instead of rattling off the specs that Samsung claims, I'm just going to talk about my particular use case on a day-to-day basis. In one example, on day one, at night, I noticed the watch was low on charge, so I topped it off. I charged it up to 100% at 10 p.m. at night. The following day, I woke up at 7 a.m., and we'll call this day 2, where the charge was down to 90%. That was just from sleeping. I lost 10% of the battery from 10 p.m. the night before to 7 a.m. when I woke up. During that particular day, I used the Galaxy Watch Ultra as just a standard smartwatch, checking the time and my phone notifications, up until about 4:30 p.m., where I had 71% of the battery left. And then at 4:30 p.m. to 5 p.m., I decided to go for my 30-minute run. And during that 30-minute run with GPS turned on and the heart rate sensor turned on and everything, I lost an additional 5% of battery life. And if we take that 5% during that 30-minute activity and we extrapolate that out to an hour, that would be about 10% of battery loss per hour. So on a full charge with the Galaxy Watch Ultra, with default settings, that's the always on display turned on, the brightness set to medium, and all the things in their default positions, you could expect about 10 hours of maximum GPS performance with the battery life of this watch out of the box. Now, of course, that 10 hours could change if you dial back the brightness or you turn off the always on display or something like that. You'll get more than 10 hours of battery life in a GPS activity. I would expect you could probably milk out like 15 or 16 hours of battery life in a GPS activity with this watch with limited settings, but out of the box, you'll get about 10 hours maximum. So after that activity, I went to bed and then I woke up the following day with the watch on my wrist and it was at 38% of its battery. So as you can see here with my particular use case with default settings and using the watch for a run just about every day, I can expect like 2 days maximum of battery life with the Galaxy Watch Ultra. I do think if you change some of the settings, you turn off the always on display, maybe you don't go on a run every single day, you could probably eke out like 3 days of battery life, but I'd say for most people, you're looking between 2 and 3 days of battery life. Now that we've talked about battery life and accuracy and all the things, let's talk about final thoughts and conclusions about the Galaxy Watch Ultra and what I think about it so far after my short time using it. Well, I think this is a watch that absolutely needs to exist. We finally have a ruggedized utilitarian smartwatch with tons of features, lots of wellness tools like that new energy score, a great display, good battery life, and above average GPS and heart rate accuracy made by Samsung for Android devices. This is something that simply didn't really exist before this watch. And I hate to bring up the Apple Watch Ultra again in this video because it seems to make you all mad, but I do think this is sort of the counterpart of the Apple Watch Ultra. If you're in Team Android and you've got an Android phone and you really love your phone and you like the idea of the Apple Watch Ultra and you've always wanted one but you didn't want to switch to an iPhone, the Galaxy Watch Ultra should be at the top of your list in terms of what watches to buy. Now this watch is mainly a smartwatch, keep that in mind. We're talking 2 to 3 days of battery life and tons of features including cellular connectivity, a speaker and microphone, an app store and all of that. So it's not really a dedicated sport watch, and I do think if you're someone running ultra marathons, you're a hiker, a thru hiker, a trail runner, someone who values battery life and more sport-specific features, there might be better options out there at this price point. For example, a Garmin Forerunner 965, an Epix, a Phoenix, something like that. With that said, not everybody out there is looking for a dedicated sport watch, and that's really where the smartwatch capabilities of the Galaxy Watch Ultra come in. And with that, we have reached the end of this very long video. I apologize for the length of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're still watching, you probably did enjoy it. And if you did enjoy it, please consider going down and giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. And while you're down there checking out the product links, also make sure to check out the links over to my other social media accounts like my Instagram, my Threads account, my Twitter, whatever, all those things down there, along with my podcast that I try to do on a semi-weekly basis where I talk all about these things. And finally, don't forget to check out chasethesummit.com where you can go ahead and pick up a sweet t-shirt like this or one of my custom running hats. All right, friends, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.